This is one of those tip-off like basketball games where neither side tried to get the ball. Like the ref or whoever throws it up, the ball just went up. It
and then they start doing a conversation. And the program that we use, they're always making updates, and so
I'm starting to see ads for it. So we record this on this software called Riverside, and I'm starting to see ads.
FM.
Yeah, it talks shit about Zoom during it. It's great.
Yeah, like, they're great. We like
unlike
them a lot.
Zoom, we won't fuck up your quality.
Yeah. Zoom is really good for meetings, but it automatically does things that you don't want it to do for a good quality recording. If both of us talk at the same time, it will lower one of us or whatever.
And we love talking at the same time.
And you can't bring it back up. Anyhow, should we just do a regular start?
I mean, I like this. I think people are going to appreciate it, the befumblingness of it.
Keep on celebrating, honeys.
It's going to, they're now more in our in-group.
Yes.
Because they're hearing behind the scenes chatter and everything.
Yeah, and it's all about our in-group. And not just that, but it's also equally important that the out-group, real bad. If we were to get rid of them, we would have paradise. But unfortunately, the people in our out-group are fucking everything up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this episode's about kind of in and out-group bias or in-group favoritism or whatever of the many different ways that it's been articulated over time. But yeah, I thought we'd chat a little bit about in and out group behavior, kind of how it evolved, some of the positives of it, because it gets a lot of negative attention, and then we'll talk about that as well, which is the dark side of prejudice and treating other humans unfairly and that sort of thing. So we're hoping to cover a bunch of that today.
Oh yeah, I was just watching this Chris Rock special, Tambourine extended cut on Netflix, and he has this bit about people love to say that like children aren't born racist and hateful, they're only taught that, and he goes into that's like the biggest crock of shit ever. Like every kid is born with the outgroup bias, and then I looked it up on actual research things, and yeah, they're doing little tests on babies that can't even speak, and then the kid that looks like them, they like the one that doesn't look like them, they're like, yeah, kill that one, great, go hurry up, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like communicating in every way they can, that like when the out group thing gets hurt, they're like, yay, and then when the in group thing gets hurt, it's like, no, the in group, one of ours got hit. So yeah, everyone is born with the out group bias, and then it gets beaten out of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty important to kind of survival very early on to be able to discriminate, who is your parents from who is not, and that sort of thing, and put more energy and effort and attention toward say family members or whatever. And most social species do this. It's usually there's some of it is just cooperation is a difficult thing to get off the ground in the first place evolutionarily. So even within parents and offspring and everything else, there's always conflict. There's always going to be an interest in either getting more energy, say, out of the parents, or providing like less for the child, because there's only so much that any one parent can provide ever, and so there has to be limits and boundaries and things like that. But yeah, there's plenty of the kind of genetic reasons for cooperation are easier because most things evolved to recognize family, and how they're doing that is a little hard to say, because basically it's kind of, a lot of times you're evolved with a predisposition toward bonding with whatever stuff that you were born into. And so for example, if a bunch of kids are together in orphanages as kids, even though they aren't related, they still have these mechanisms for bonding and everything. And then those kids later on in life, if they meet one another, they don't find themselves like sexually attracted to one another, even though there's no like genetic reason why they couldn't, it wouldn't be biologically incestuous or anything like that. But they've
already... Is this just from the girl's end or from the guy's end too?
I would say more from the girls end. The guys are certainly...
I feel like there's just more of the, like, I see you as a brother coming from that end than there is from the other end.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it's non-existent, but just in gen.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, then there's just like ducklings. Oh, of course, I can't remember his name now off of the...
What, the duckling's name? Donald.
The duckling guy. Oh, man.
The researcher, not the duck. Herman Pondberg.
Oh, yeah. Conrad Lorenz. He was a German guy, and then he eventually did some stuff with like the Nazi Party and things like that. Good with work. Like conditioning.
Should have worked harder though.
Some of his earlier work was some interesting breakthroughs. Basically, he would raise ducklings and figured out that whatever kind of big moving thing a duckling saw just really early on after hatching, it would just follow that around everywhere. So there's just something in the duckling that just goes, if you see a big thing, that's your mom, basically. Just follow it along. That's your caretaker. And so that's more insight into how the brain is kind of assessing in-group stuff, but in the wild, like that's very rarely. So he's the first guy to observe that? Yeah, that was some of his early.
And doesn't it go as far as, because I remember the chirp sound thing, like you can even just put a piece of cardboard that doesn't look like a duck, and then if it makes the chirp sound, then it's like, oh, mom. I don't know if that's ducks or with a certain type of chicken, but it goes as far as, I think you're the one that told me that you can even separate the head from the body, and it's still...
that was regarding mating.
Oh yeah, mating. Okay.
Yeah, that was with how horny male turkeys are. If you want to see what features they are favoring, it's impossible to figure out because they'll just bang anything, and you can have a toy like turkey and then take its wings off and feathers off and head off and stuff, and the dudes will still be trying to bang like this styrofoam ball that once looked like a turkey.
Men we're just better in that way.
We're just better in that way.
We're just less discriminating, Doesn't have to have a job and a good personality and
yeah. We're so generous with our sperm. That's such a nice reframing. Yeah, so I mean that's for things to start working together and even cells to start cooperating and stuff early on. There had to be, because it was kind of an early mystery how anything was able to organize itself. If there is like this kind of selfish gene theory, and every gene's looking out for itself, but usually there's just symbiotic relationships and things that take off. And so then it depends on the species, because a lot of species are solitary and really don't care about one another. But I mean, usually the males in any species are the biggest threat to that species or the biggest competition, rather than any like predator or anything else. Usually it's like, you'd rather watch out for a male within your species than being eaten by a lion or something like that.
Yeah, even more than humans that hunt those, right? Or maybe not when it comes to factory farming and things like that. But I read that there's more male on male whale deaths than like being hunted with a harpoon or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of competition out there. I mean, it's a very narrow kind of genetic window to get selected and to gain access to females at the various ways of from everything to providing parental care and paternal care and being nurturing and all of this to just straight up killing other guys, and everything in between happens.
Yeah. And we made it, and we're the product of 4 billion years of successful mating.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild to think of that. But then so is everyone who's in this plane. So it's like where you don't feel special if you're at Harvard because everyone around you is at Harvard. But then when you get accepted before you step into your dorm for the first time, you're like, I'm fancy. I got into Harvard. But now it's just, every human being was a product of successful mating. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. So then there's kinship altruism, which is just you're sharing genes. So 50% of your genes are in your parents or in your children or in your siblings. 1/8 of your genes are in your cousins. And so, from a genetic standpoint, you should care half as much about your siblings or parents or children or whatever as you do about yourself. And then
aren't we also 50% banana though? So wouldn't we also need to 50% of our caring energy go towards all bananas?
I think that it doesn't quite work that way.
Sure it does. Go look at a beaker. Go pull up a beaker on the Google image search and see what it says.
And there's so there's and then care like as 1/8 as much about your cousins or something like that. But there's ways in which cooperation can take off, but then to get to cultural cooperation and caring about things that you aren't related to, there's not a ton of species doing that, really. I mean, it happens, and there's a lot of flock and herd behavior and stuff, but every condition is different. And then what makes things competitive just depends on the number of resources, oftentimes. So
yeah. But we wouldn't care if it wasn't for recent technological advances. I mean, even before the internet, newspapers and things like that. That's why people would care about, the war in Vietnam or something like that. But would they care if it was completely abstract? If you never saw a photo of them, all that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you would care.
I mean, if you just hear about it happening elsewhere.
Which now we really care because we see like HD videos of someone like being, kneeled on by a police officer or a bomb going off in Ukraine. So then it's real. Now it's like, okay, I care for these people that I'm getting the stimulus of. But if you just hear about it, like there's some people different than you, they speak a different language, they look different, and they're being harmed, you would just...
Yeah, people care quite a bit less. There's a study on race that they did where they explained the 3-strike rule, where 3 strikes and you're out and you're in prison for life or whatever. However it works in different states, I'm not super up to speed.
I didn't even know this was
a
rule.
Yeah, if you get like 3 felonies, you
get life.
Yeah, you get
or death
life.
Penalty sometimes.
Life.
Yeah. Sometimes worse than the death penalty.
Yeah, not many people get the old death penalty.
No, you get any food you want. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, what would
Say
you
what
have?
you want about the killing you and the imprisoning you for a long time before they kill you, but the last moment is any food you want.
Yeah, we should do a food episode, and maybe that would be
Have we not?
A good thing to start out with. Well, yeah, we'll do a food episode. There's a lot of fun stuff about satiation and why we like the things that we do, and just weird, peculiar food study things that have happened along the way.
Someone did a coffee table book about it, like famous last meals. Like some people just get like Fruit Loops. Some people do like a whole porthouse steak sort of dinner thing. Some people opt out entirely and they show the empty plate. Some people just want chicken nuggets. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. We're talking about it now. What would you have last meal?
I mean, I had a joke on my first stand-up comedy, like the first year in stand-up comedy. One of the first jokes I did that did well was that I would pick a bag of unpopped popcorn kernels as my last meal. Or no, not even a bag, like 50 bags of unpopped popcorn kernels. So then when they put you in the electric chair,
yeah,
that would be
amazing.
fun. But I don't know, maybe just, I don't know, some pizza from that one place in New York that I don't remember the name of now.
You had
an
a
authentic
really good
New York pizza. Yeah, that's what I want.
Wow.
Just a slice, an elephant ear slice of pepperoni.
Huh. That's like the chicken nugget ask on the
Kind of is. Yeah, I didn't go far with it. But
yeah, that's very. Yeah, I mean,
I'll eat more in hell. It's okay.
Yeah, I think I'd like a filet mignon, maybe some like, I don't know, street corn. Now that we're talking about corn, I don't know what I would want.
That's still fun. Maybe we can get both and then split. Like I get some of yours, you get some of mine. Yeah. But also it's last meal, so I could just add that as an appetizer.
Yeah. I don't think you need to share it.
Most importantly, though, what did we do? What did we do? People always ask, what would your last meal be? But they never ask, okay, now what did you do to end up there? Second degree murder, yeah.
I mean, you have to like go pretty hard into the murder paint to get the whole death penalty, and you got to be in the right
murder?
state.
It's probably only murder, right?
I think so.
Or probably rapes too, if you don't kill them, but it's like lots of rapes, maybe.
Maybe. I don't think so. I think it's really
Rapists
hard.
do get off easy. Yeah, they get put in the drunk tank for like 6 hours.
I think it depends on the state a lot. In some places that is sort of true, unfortunately.
Yeah, you get paid for your time too. And it's honor system. You write down what your salary is.
I think it's pretty darn hard to get the death penalty. It used to be easy. They used to lynch people left and right.
There used to be lynching postcards.
What do you mean?
There's a documentary about it now, but there used to be like lynching. You think of like just this like solitary thing, but people would when you would get lynched, they would have a big party about it, and then they would take a photo of it, and people would pose near the, like, families, children and everything would pose near the hanging person, like, yeah, we got another one of them. And that's less than 100 years ago. So yeah, look it up. Look up lynching postcards. You know, every like there's so many layers to like racism in the past where you just think like, okay, I got it now. I know all the horrible things that happened. And then you hear more, like you hear that, you know, George Washington had slave teeth as his dentures and things like that. It just keeps unraveling.
Slave teeth. I know,
they were
that's
wooden
a rough
teeth.
one.
Yeah.
What if I like the person that did that revision for the history books. Like,
wood.
What if they were wooden teeth? Yeah, we like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Has anyone had wooden teeth?
Of course not. It's worse than paper straws. Would dissolve just in your mouth, wouldn't it? Well, they wouldn't wear it all the time. They would only wear it during photographs and during food, which most of the food was kind of like a smoothie back then.
I want to meet that person that you're doing the impression of right now. I hope that we actually have a listener that sounds exactly like that character that you do. And that's why they resonate with the show that much. And then we're at Campout and the actually guy that has exactly that voice.
I think the thing with actually guy is that they are very knowledgeable, but like when you know a lot about something, you come up with like, well, there were upsides to what the Nazis were doing. There were upsides to, you know, plantations and slaveries. It was mostly bad, but here are some, and people don't want to hear the nuances of things. So it's like when I do actually guy, it's kind of an exaggerated version of that.
That's fun. Well, I think that that's one of the things with social media where you see something and and you want to share some interesting tidbit about that thing. Like I saw someone doing an impression of here's an actually guy that I did. I saw someone do this very funny impression of like fancy retail stores and how they treat people and how they're very snobbish and telling women that they won't be able to afford it and this isn't the right store for you, and you're going to want to go to like Sears or something down the street. Yeah. And that's actually a trained technique in really fancy stores because it's negging. It's what happened if you size someone up and you think they're like, they probably can't afford it. If you neg them, they'll like make it their life mission to buy a $9,000 dress that they're never going to wear from that store, just to like, I'll show you what I can and cannot afford.
I'm glad I don't have that. Or I hope I don't.
So,
but some people have the thing like they can't go into a store at all without buying something. They just feel terrible.
That's why I always feel bad for people that aren't supporting us on Patreon, because they're just like too poor and not classy enough to support us.
Bad personality. Unless they joined, then they would be, who's the most popular person? Dolly Parton. They would be Dolly Parton if they didn't.
So going back to, we got on the prison conversation because they did this study where they explained the 3-strike rule, and they were asking people what they thought of it. Just how fair do you think the 3-strike rule is? And then you got, most people thought it was unfair if it was just written down or whatever. And then if you showed pictures of the actual prison population in the actual ratio of races that there are, which is like 25% black, then they still didn't support it in the same way. But if they changed those pictures to make it like half of the prison population black, people were more inclined to be like, yeah, that seems like a fair rule. So there's lots of stuff like that you can do to trigger. I mean,
is that true, or did you just make up the 25?
No, that's true.
It's 25? What's white? And what's Asian is probably 0. Asian is like 2. And then Hispanic maybe is like leading also.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it would make sense that white is most, because I think just the general population is majority white. Yeah, so it's not like you want to go by percentage of.
And that's crazy because white people get off with all sorts of stuff too, whereas like black people are unfairly targeted and discriminated against constantly. So it's the idea that we still have such high numbers, because there's even, they'll show people videos of like they'll show a shoving match, and if like,
there's shoving matches that don't escalate.
Like actors, they'll have actors like shove each other or whatever, and if the black actor shoved the white actor, people took it as like a really big form of aggression, generally speaking. And then if the white actor shoved the black actor, they were like, oh, they were just goofing around. That's just
really
a goof. Yeah. So there's this whole field of research that's, I guess it's a little controversial, but it's the implicit association tests, these race IITs, and how they work is you kind of go on. I've done them before, and you can study race and be the most progressive person in the world, and you're still, like, over and over again, you're still going to show some of these implicit biases, and because it's just in us. And so what they'll do is they'll take like, you have to pick a good word or a bad word or whatever, and you have to, so like 2 words
honey and piss.
Yeah, so 2 words will appear, and you need to, as quickly as you can, select the good word, honey, in our case.
Huh?
And so a series of things like that. And if you instead pair them with pictures, and you put like a white and a black person on each side or whatever, if you put the black person on the honey and the white person on the piss, people take longer to select the good word than they would if it's just the words. There's endless tests like this.
Just this like black guy holding like a little honey bear, and then like a white guy drinking his own piss, and then you're just looking at it like,
what's good?
How much time do I have to?
And the controversy is it's not necessarily fair to any of us, as we all have these like very, very gut intuitive reactions that happen. That, this is like a split second thing. A lot happens after that split second. So it is pretty good at measuring discrimination in really, if there's like a police shooting or something like that. And by the way, police generally outperform the general public in any of these kind of situations where they'll have simulations, and the black person holds up like a pack of cigarettes or something like that and is more likely to get shot. People take longer to shoot a white guy with an actual gun than
But you said they perform better though. What does that mean?
So police perform better because they've had a lot more training. They don't shoot the black guy with the cigarette pack as much as just the general population does. Like if you just throw average Joe Schmo off the street into one of these police training things, they're going to perform worse than most police do. But then that can change too, because some people, there's like all sorts of police that were like, whatever, very progressive and things when they got into it, and then through conditioning and being on the streets and hanging out with hang out in the locker room or whatever, they can find themselves. There's a lot of reports of
Johnson,
police,
you're all right. Welcome to the squad. Between you and me, I think we'd be a whole lot better if it was just good old boys like us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Well, see you tomorrow on the force.
Yeah, there's just all sorts of systemic things that have happened with race over time that leads to just more disparity and more poverty and less chances and stricter laws and just more policing. And most, like decades ago, like black people didn't feel comfortable calling the police ever. They had to just like settle their own things, because it still happens today, but if you call the police, you were likely to get in trouble, even if you were calling to report something being done to you and stuff like that. So it's been happening for a long time, obviously, but the argument against the IAT stuff is that for most of us, it's like,
what's IAT?
The intuition, implicit association test.
Oh, okay.
The thing that we're the good versus bad type thing. So like if you were to say have a flower in front of over the word good or something, like people will hit the word good really quickly. And so it's just about these associations.
What if there's a flower on both, but one of them says black and one says white?
I don't know what happens in that scenario.
Because that's an interesting one, because those exist outside of the concepts of skin color. And wherever you go with darkness and light, of course, darkness is bad and light is good. We like being able to see stuff and have the plants grow and all that kind of thing. But then when it gets into the colors of black, white, those are too charged now. Yeah.
Well, so there's all sorts of studies that they do where there's just associations being made where they can have like a white guy and a black guy that are the exact same build, and they'll have people estimate how large they think that person is, like their height and their weight, and they always dramatically overestimate how big the black person is. They also will like ask how aggressive they believe them to be and that sort of thing. Or they'll have neutral faces and they'll ask people to identify, you know, if that person is making an aggressive face or not. And you're more inclined to think black people are making the aggressive face.
What if, is this everyone, or you're saying this is what white people say about the skin colors that is not them? Because what would a black person in average pick the white person looks more aggressive, or they always skew the other way?
I wish I could remember this off the top of my head, but there's definitely studies that have revealed that black people will also discriminate in this same way, you know, probably just because of just the cultural, just the cultural impact of being told that story over and over again. Like we had Cops growing up, and that was a show that was, they found out they would have better ratings if it was black people being chased around in the streets and stuff. So they would just put more black people.
Always chase the ratings, regardless of what it is. It's always about the trend of now and then following it blindly.
Yeah. So it's like all fucking horribly depressing stuff and things that we don't want to admit about ourselves. And that would be the pushback on some of the IET stuff, and you'll see some of the red pills pushing back against it. And I think there is a little bit of a case to be made where you have a flash of a thing, you're at a grocery store and it's taking too long and you're getting anxious or whatever, you're in a hurry and you just start getting angry and you have a flash of like, just, you know, yelling at someone or something like that. You think about it for a split second, and then, or being aggressive or something like that, or you get fired up in some social situation. But then a lot happens in the brain after that very first implicit, interaction, that kind of deep brain reflex stuff. A whole lot happens where you start checking yourself and thinking things through a lot more clearly. So that's why a lot of the probably the worst of some of the discrimination that we see is in very intense situations, because police, for example, need to make these split-second decisions, and brains are just pretty fucking discriminating assholes in a split second of a time. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have a little more time to think about anything,
especially if you think your life is on the line, even when it never was, if they were holding a water gun or something, it's like, well, it's them or me. And then, oh crap, it was never them or me. And now I just played that out. But someone had a joke, I think it was Shane Gillis, actually, I could be wrong, but the joke had something to do with racism is like hunger. Like, you're not walking around actively thinking that all the time, but then in certain situations, it comes out of people, like the same way that, like, you know, in a car or something, that becomes your default.
Yeah,
I forget the joke, but I like that it wasn't a consistent thing. It's a thing that comes out that is deep in everyone.
I mean, it depends on your upbringing and things. It depends on how much diversity you see. I mean, if dogs aren't socialized properly, they, you know, are more aggressive toward other dogs or other humans, or if they never see some human of another race, they might bark more or whatever. It's an embarrassing thing that happens to a lot of dog owners. I've noticed this when I walk other people's dogs. Really?
Yeah, I don't do it often, you know, watching a friend's dog or something, but, you know, you kind of collect data points in your head. It's like, why is it being more aggressive here?
Yeah.
And there's a whole Family Guy trope of that too, and on. But I feel like there was a point I got us off of.
I mean, there's just, what do you have experience with? And if you go your whole life without experiencing a lot of these outgroups, it's just easy to buy into whatever narrative. So I'm sure
it's why cities are liberal and why rural are conservative, because they don't live next to people that look different than them.
Yeah, and when you mentioned kind of TV causing the bonding and stuff now, because in certain circumstances, because we can now feel for someone in some other country whose city was bombed or whatever. But I'm sure that a lot of our evolutionary past, I'm sure the people over the hill, I'm sure there was always just like grand mythology about what they were doing and why you should stay away from them, and, building up very, very dramatic stories about how dangerous they were and things.
Yeah.
And humans have somehow been able to cooperate in huge numbers, which our friend Yuval Harari kind of makes this point about why it happened. Which is, he
does sometimes make that point, but he was busy today, so he couldn't make it until you paused, which pausing is a signal that sapiens give to complete the thought.
Trying to set you up there. The idea is that we if you can, one of the ways to encourage intergroup cooperation is to agree over collective ideas. So you just need bigger and bigger ideas that you can then fall within that in-group of.
We're all God's children, except for them. Okay, them too, but we're all God's children except for that new group that's emerged. Okay, we're all God's children except for the people that don't think that. Then they're it's weird that we have this innate hatred of the out group, even when you hate people that have biases. So now, like, the new thing is, whether it's the
I hate people with bias. I'm so biased against people with biases.
Yeah, like the anti-racism. It's the same. I'm not saying it's equal. Of course, that's a better thing to have than racism, but it's a concentrated hatred. It's like, oh, I gotta hate something. Can I hate the people that hate? Yeah, you can hate them. Okay, good. I just had to hate something. I'm gonna hate the hatred people.
Yeah, it was, I mean, we all have probably some propensity towards this, and like. Metaphorically, X amount of units of hatred that needs to, which, like, we all experience. You just get if long enough goes, when I don't have anything to be sad about, I'll just get sad for no reason. It's like my brain's just like, hey, we haven't expressed sadness in a while. Let's get down with sadness for a while. We need to let old sad Shane out. We haven't seen him in a while.
And we never even enjoy it. We're always actively resisting it. It's like, when is the good joy productivity coming back? When's it coming back? And it probably would have come back quicker if you would just let the sadness run its course. But I think I've brought up before how where do we draw the line on the hatred of, this might be a stretch, but like, if people have like serious mental faculties diminished, if they have some sort of thing where they're like, Down syndrome or something like that, that's not cool to not like those people. But then you look at like Trump people and say, do you think they're stupid? Yeah, of course. I hate those people. But how much intelligence, where is the line where you can hate them for not having a certain mental faculty, and when is it not okay?
Yeah, intuitively,
I don't think there is a line, but
it feels like if someone has the capabilities of doing better or learning this thing, and they're just incredulous towards it and don't want to take the time to learn, but
do they though? Because we don't know. We're like overestimating. Like, come on, you could do better. You could figure this stuff out better. But maybe they couldn't. Maybe they have to believe the QAnon. They have to.
Yeah, maybe. And that's a lot of Sapolsky's new book that will be coming out soon-ish. Determined is much about that sort of thing, I believe. But yeah, I think that, first of all, like, severely mentally retarded or handicapped or whatever, what's the word now so I can be correct?
Just retarded, I think you got it.
they are seemingly the happiest, most loving people on earth. So that's the strange thing is like you have a low enough IQ, you love everybody, and then you just throw a few more IQ points on it and you hate everybody.
Is that true though? I haven't studied that population much. I mean, I don't know if that's what's shown.
Sure
and there's
all
like
sorts of wrong and
mischaracterizing. I talked to my brother, about my nephew and stuff. And like, he's such a happy kid. He's like the happiest guy ever. And it's like, oh yeah, he is. But also people aren't seeing the tantrums. So like you see like a kid that's seemingly always happy, but there's also these tantrums that are often hidden because they're not posted about on the family photo album and things like that. But
I used to carpool with this the retarded kid when I was young. He used to come over. His mom would drop him off at our house in the morning. We would watch DuckTales.
Nice. Good evening already.
Eat about an entire box of cereal. Like it was insane. I didn't even understand how
was he a big person or just was good at eating?
He was a little big too. Yeah. And then we would go to school, and I would see him like get mocked and stuff in the halls sometimes, and I never saw him not happy. Even when people were mocking him, he was like, "Hey," just the happiest. So that influences my view of the mentally handicapped.
Anecdotal, but still a data point. It would make sense because so much of our suffering as modern humans is not having enough food to eat or not having shelter, but it's our own brain that we're at war with for various reasons. I think that is the main cause of unhappiness.
Yeah, I mean, if something else has a brain, and you're assessing that it has a mind, you're wondering, well, what kind of mind does it have? Especially, I think some of it's projection. If you think being aggressive is an okay thing and violence is something that's warranted a lot and everything else, then if you imagine everyone else is on that same page, then when it comes to thinking about outgroups, of course you're going to worry that maybe they're as violent or discriminating or whatever else is as you might be. I don't know. The way I was raised, there was like I had a Muslim friend from a very early age growing up, and so that was like my little bit of exposure to non-white people. And
did you have to stop the basketball game because they would need to go pray? That happened with me. A good friend of mine that was the first time I learned that they prayed 5 times a day. And eventually you get used to it pretty quick. Like, oh, he's got to go for 15 minutes. He'll be right back.
Yeah. There was a lot of that. It always seemed really strange to me because I didn't like church and religion from a very early age. And so to see someone having to go through more religious traditions, like that's even more insane, Like I hated being drugged to church every Sunday. They're doing this thing like every single day.
Yeah, and they're the only ones I can see around that are doing that.
Yeah, there was, I mean, in my high school, in my class, there was like 1 or maybe 2 there was like 1 black guy in my class, Cisco, and man, like
Cisco spelled like thong song or like the computer software?
I think CISCO.
Like the computer software. Cool.
And like he had a rough go. He wasn't like easily welcomed into our school when he moved in and everything. There was a lot of
it's the 80s, 90s back then.
Yeah. And I think that he also, like, at the time, because I've met him more, he's come to shows and stuff in our adult life. And I mean, I think at the time he needed to like play up because he also was never around that many black people, so he got his information of what a black person is supposed to be like from TV as well, and like played that up. And so, yeah, I mean, my upbringing, and I think it's why I care enough about this, is because I remember laughing at all of the like racist jokes and things. And I remember it's just, there's a lot of, I remember being young and hearing people talk about like black people being more likely to be criminals or something like that. And that's just like what everyone says, and you don't have any other information, and it's just an easy narrative to buy into when you couple your genes and intuitions that are already going to have all of these in and out group bias things, and then your culture is telling you all of these stories about these out groups, because part of it also makes your in group sound so good. You know, there's like a self-esteem to it where it's like, yeah, we're the special ones. It's even if your life isn't great, as long as you get to be a part of that special group, and this is why our neighborhoods are safer or whatever else.
It happens with sports. Like, you could be the least athletic person in the universe, but if your team's winning, I'm like, I'm better than the athletes on the losing team because I'm on the winning team, even though I don't play on the field. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just took a lot of exposure to other people, working in a factory with Mexicans and stuff, and like actually getting to know people. That's one of the things that I'm the most grateful for my alcoholism, is that I have had so many drinks with so many different types of people in all different regions of the country, all over the world. And that will change you. Like, it's pretty hard to still be kind of discriminating. I mean, people do it. People still pull it off, but it's harder to discriminate against like the basic kind of groups. And we're just dwelling on race right now too, which is like,
I guess we are. Yeah.
As you pointed out, there's a lot more going on.
I mean, it's the headliner though, right? When you think of in-group, out-group bias, that's the number one separator historically.
It's like 60% of our brain is putting its 60% of our energy is for kind of visual, information gathering. And so that's just the easy thing. But Irish Catholics and Protestants, were at war for a very long time. Muslims, Sunnis, and Shiites.
I just learned that, and I am from that lineage. Like, I didn't even know there was. I mean, I was sure I was told it, and I just didn't listen. But the Iran-Iraq war, the Shiites and Sunnis, and Iraq is Arabs, and Iran is not Arabs, and there's that conflict. And when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, but overall, like, come on, it's pretty similar, isn't it? And it's like lemons going to war with limes. Like, I can understand apples and oranges going to war, but come on, lemons and limes, just get in the Gatorade.
Yeah. I think I told Arj Barker's joke before about
Arj Barker, number one comedian in Australia,
about how something about how the only way to see like a vast amount of cooperation in humans is he really just wants the aliens to come down to attack, because then everyone from like American to European to Middle Eastern to Asian, and everyone can unite with the aliens against the Jews. Solid twisteroo.
He always had the best twists.
And his delivery, like, that was an abbreviated version. Arj's setups are just so insanely, like, he draws that out for like minutes. Such an just a ridiculously grand build up for just that
Yeah.
one little punchline at the end. And it's a cool style. He's always hilarious. I'm surprised he hasn't done better in the US.
Oh, maybe he's just having so much fun in Kiwi Land. Is Kiwi Land Australia? Because I've just been seeing that a lot. People just saying like Kiwi here. I don't really understand the American accent. I think Kiwis are Australians or New Zealanders. Write in what a Kiwi is for a chance to win a Kiwi at some point in the future. I'm sorry, your chance failed.
New Zealander.
Oh, New Zealand. Okay. Then what are they? Dingoes? What are
Aussies.
Australians? They're Barbies?
Aussies.
Aussies? Okay.
Yeah.
Aussies.
Shrimp on the barbie is a barbecue. That's a barbecue.
Oh, and that was one that I think they don't even say. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd never said that once. No, they say it? Okay.
I've been invited to shrimp on the barbie before.
Okay, it's a
when I
thing
was in
then.
Australia.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to be delicate. I'm trying to be exactly the perfect guy.
yeah, you should
Not
be.
too, like, you don't want to be too out-group biasy, but also you don't want to be lame to where people are uncomfortable around you because you're so good of a person that they like would feel bad. You want to be the exact perfect amount of guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I am, and I've upheld it to this day.
So I think we've mentioned before too that you just there's studies where you just give 50% of the people when they come in one color shirt, and you just go. So if we did this at the Mind Under Matter Campout or whatever, just every other person you give an orange shirt or a purple shirt to, and you could predict that the orange ones would start hanging out with each other a lot more, and the purple ones would start hanging out with each other quite a bit more.
Have they
as well.
done this?
Yeah. They've done studies
Interesting.
exactly like that. And it's like, it doesn't take too long before like there's two sides of the room chatting with one another. And it's not necessarily bad as long as you aren't saying, these purple shirt people are the worst, like for the camp out, we still don't know how many people are going to like show up from around locally and stuff with the marketing that we're doing more locally to fill things out more. But our early ticket holders, which are still the majority, there was like at first some people are like, well, how am I gonna know who's a mummy and stuff? And I think that a lot of people are showing up on Patreon Day. My guess would be that the people show up that show up together and are hanging out on Patreon Day are going to like be hanging out with each other more than meeting new people through the rest of the fest, if I had to guess, based on kind of the stuff that we're talking about. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's fun to know the inside jokes of a thing. It's fun to be a part of a club. There's nothing particularly wrong with like there's no just getting in on the in club of Mind Under Matter doesn't mean that you need to discriminate against Asians or whatever thing.
Come on, discriminate against them.
There's lots of reasons why it's fun to be in on something. It's fun to be in on the group of people around the water cooler that have watched the new HBO series that is popular or whatever. There's lots of ways in which we group ourselves that isn't. So when we talk about in and out group bias, the first thing that you think of is kind of racism and discrimination and all of the horrific things that come along with that. But it's not necessarily a bad thing to find people with similar interests as you have and
it's just
hang
the
out
wars
with them.
get out of hand.
Yeah.
But if it's just like who you're hanging out with on the weekend and not like saying, sorry, you're not invited, but it just happens to be who you're hanging out with, the people that like to watch Pokemon, because then you can all talk about it and you don't have to listen to like, well, which one is that again? That's Charizard. I don't want to have to explain it every time. Yeah, you should have shared group things, but
So you buy if you buy one of Ramin's shirts or have some Ramin shirts during Campout, then not only will you get to signal to like know who the other mummies are around, but you'll also have a conversation piece on you. But I think the other cool thing is that people that show up that are just coming with their friends or like friends of some of the scientists that we're booking or whatever else will be able to be like, hey, maybe this person knows what this weird reference is here, the art piece or whatever. So it's, so
it works.
Fun.
What do you think second most? So we said skin color is like a big in-group, out-group bias. What about, I think, does politics come next? Because that would probably transcend gender. I feel like people have...
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. It feels like that's more of a dividing line than it is like we're team men and we're team women. It seems like there's equal men and women across the political divide than there is.
That's true.
Then it is like, no, we're team men. We're going to take over, even though we already took over.
Yeah, because you mentioned that in episode 69 about the kind of that inherent discrimination between the genders. That's a pretty big one. I don't know. I think it could rival. If you look at in terms of some of these like implicit associations, if you look at boys and girls, like I wasn't exposed to that many girls growing up either. When I was a kid. Like I didn't have any, like I wasn't allowed to hang out with females. Like the only female that I knew was my little sister. I'm talking about when I was like a little kid.
Oh, their parents wouldn't let you come near them, or you weren't allowed to go near them?
Maybe it's not that I wasn't allowed. It just never happened. It was always boys would all hang out with one another. And you remember thinking about like cooties and those sorts of things that
I never believed it.
You were never into the cooties thing?
No.
You were always into girls?
I wasn't trying to date like when I'm in 5th grade or something. Cause also that period of my life, I was in Canada and it was such a weird, different dynamic than here, where in the States, you would have math class, English class, and you'd have different teachers and the class would get split up a lot. And then I remember back in elementary school, we would have one classroom and one teacher that taught every subject. And we would just sit in the same room for 8 hours and your class would age up with you. So the people you were in 5th grade or the people you were in kindergarten with, you would be in that same class of people in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. And so you just kind of grew up with this group of 30 people and you just all knew each other. You're all wearing sweatpants. You're not trying to be sexy for each other. You're not trying to do anything like that till, mid high school. And then when I moved to the States, it's like, oh, people are dating and going to dances in 4th grade. And everyone looked more mature. Like the guys have their shirts tucked in and they're wearing Ralph Lauren and women are wearing makeup and stuff. It was quite a culture shock for this young lad.
That's interesting. Well, you went through the kind of orphanage study.
Yeah, I did.
That you see. Yeah.
That's why I said I still would have gotten with them, but we weren't of that age yet though. It's not a thing you think about. Yeah.
And you weren't like in orphanages. You're like, we're talking like 2 years old, like bathing with the same people and
no, we didn't
like
bathe together. We would just play in the jungle gym and stuff.
Yeah. But did you being Iranian, did you feel like you were ever treated different in situations through
There was only 2 brown kids in my class. There was me and another girl who was Indian. So we were just kind of the brown ones, but it was never like, okay, we're going to leave the brown people out of this one. The 2 scenarios I remember, or maybe there's a handful of them, but one was the teacher asking me and this other girl, Shauna, if we celebrated Christmas. And I was confused as to like, wait, why are we being singled out as to, like, he's not asking those ones if they celebrate Christmas. Like all the white ones, like, yeah, you're probably Christmas celebrators, but do you celebrate Christmas? And then another time was in soccer where this team of all brown kids kicked our asses to where the goalie was even scoring. and they were just laughing about like how behind we were. And then the kids on my team were like, fucking Packies. And then looked at me and went, no offense, Ramin. Yeah, it's like kind of early in the team. They don't even know that my name is not Ramin yet.
Wow. What was there a difference when you moved to the US?
Yeah, a little bit, but not it's almost like they didn't know what you were. Like you get made fun of across a lot of different axes. If you're wearing glasses, you get made fun of that. If you've got some extra weight, you're made fun of that. If you've got zits, you're made fun of that. If you throw an air ball, you're made fun of that. If you do well on the test, all sorts of different axes. But I don't remember a whole lot of brownness discrimination, maybe because there's lots of Mexicans and I just blended in with Mexicans too. But then after 9/11, there was more of that, because then they knew the axis of evil and what Middle Eastern was, and like, oh, okay, there's this other group that's not the Russians, that they're trying to take down America.
Because what, you would have been in high school?
Yeah, early high school.
Yeah, that must have changed things a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But I never like saw my car like that said "Go back to Iraqistan" on it. Never something like that. But just like the hack jokes and things.
Go back to Iraqistan.
But the jokes and stuff, yeah, for sure. It became a new hateful group because George Bush said Iran is in the axis of evil, and before Iran, it didn't even exist. It was just Persia. Or just say that, oh, I'm Persian. It's from Persia, and they'd think of Aladdin or something.
Yeah.
Oh, magic carpet, genie, you're all right. You're like the Egyptians. You're kind of cool. We don't know much about you. It's probably poor there now or something. Just go on. And then when the terrorism thing became big, it's like, oh, so you're a terrorist, huh? You don't have a bomb in that backpack, do you? No, I don't have a bomb in the backpack. Your dad's name isn't Who's Bean Fartine, is it? No, it's not Who's Bean Fartine.
I wish my dad's name was Who's Bean Fartine.
I remember when they were naming all the names of the people in the 9/11 planes. My dad is like, please God, don't be someone named Yahya Nazer. He's like, just because you never know if someone's just gonna have your name in there. It's like, oh phew, no one that looks like me or has my name. I made it.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that increases all of this stuff is just just uncertainty in general, and threat perception just increases dramatically. So pregnant women quite regularly become more
in-groupy,
discriminating, in-groupy. Definitely.
That's why my pregnant friends would say racist stuff to me all the time.
Exactly.
That's why.
Yeah, and biologically you're way more vulnerable at that time, and so anything that's going to make you vulnerable is also going to just exacerbate is going to exacerbate.
We should retire asturbate for all other words other than the main one, because it's just too similar.
It really is. So yeah, anything like my one of my favorite studies about it, the rotten egg smell study, which I know that we've touched. It's probably been like a year since we've talked about
Let's
it.
Hit it again.
Is where they have people come in for a survey about social values. So what do you think about gay marriage? What do you think about affirmative action? That sort of thing. And you rate people in a control setting and you get one result, and then you have a experimental setting where there's a rotten egg smell or whatever in this in the room, and just that rotten egg smell is enough to make people survey as far more socially conservative on those traits, more against affirmative action, more against gay marriage, that sort of thing. And the logic being is that even just a bacterial threat has this priming influence where now it's kind of your brain is now changing your perception to kind of make you averse to anything new, anything different, any outgroup signals of any kind, because what's happening is your immune system's now like, well, hold on, we gotta there are threats right now. We're already going to be doing everything that we can to, like, you know, boost the immune system to figure out the threats that are in this environment. And so we're busy enough, so we can't take any new chances getting some disease from some other place, some other person that's in an outgroup. And so just that subtle impact is enough to make people
so that could be a cheat code where the Republicans could go into all the voting stations and put rotten egg smell in it. So even if you weren't going to vote for DeSantis or something, just when you smell the rotten egg smell, you're just still like, I gotta vote for the red.
Well, it's already happening, because areas around the equator generally have higher parasitic and bacterial threats than the north, and stuff will get viruses, but in terms of parasites and bacteria, they flourish in really warm and humid environments.
Is a virus not a parasite?
No. No, a parasite's like a living thing. Oh man, don't make me articulate the difference right now. But
I mean, I know parasite needs a host to survive, and then a virus is technically not life. I remember reading that it's kind of like A-E-I-O-U and sometimes Y. Like a virus is technically not a vowel. It's like it's not alive, but it's not a piece of machinery either. We can't really classify it as either.
But if a bacteria is like living, you know, in a dish or on the surface or whatever, whereas a virus isn't alive until it gets into a cell and starts using that cell to
it uses its little drill thing. They're pretty cool.
They are really neat.
Alien spaceships with a little drill that like puts its code in you.
Yeah,
I hate them, but
yeah, I mean, we've had a long
Is there positive viruses?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
They did something on Red Dwarf. I don't know if this could ever play out, but they made there's like a luck virus, and the virus got you and you'd get really lucky all of a sudden.
Yeah, some viruses have beneficial properties for their hosts in symbiotic relationships. And, well, other natural and laboratory modified viruses can be used to target and kill cancer cells, to treat a variety of genetic diseases and like genes and cell therapy tools, or serve as vaccines or vaccine delivery agents. So yeah, there's been all sorts of like good viruses along the way, and ones that are just not pathogenic, just don't.
But
do
not ones
bad.
Just floating around, right? Like ones that we use as a means to an end, but there's not like catching a virus that puts you in a good mood or makes you have heightened, physical endurance or something like that.
Well, I don't know about viruses, but there's certainly good and bad bacteria.
That I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if viruses had that too.
I think there are. I don't think that there's good parasites to have.
The cat one is kind of cool. It makes you better at soccer because it makes men more aggressive. Doesn't Brazil have a lot of that toxoplasmosis parasite that's in, look it up, it's in cat urine. And there's a lot of it in Brazil, and apparently it makes the men more aggressive and it makes the women more, friendly or something with it. It had like the opposite effect across that, and that's why there's a slight edge in soccer. Most of that could have been bullshit, except for the fact that it's a cat piss parasite that makes you aggressive. And when rats get it, it makes them want to go towards the cat.
Yeah,
like it goes towards the predator. So it's like a mind control thing almost.
Yeah, I love that example. Yeah, it makes rats attracted to the smell of cat urine.
Yeah, we joke that we have the cat parasite here because we're just slaves of Yosh and we just do whatever he wants, and we love that we get to do whatever he wants. We totally have the brain parasite.
Yeah, viral infections at a young age are important to ensure proper development for our immune system. And so there's, I mean, the world is, we only hear about the ones that are really negatively impacting us. But yeah, we're mostly bacteria and viruses and parasites and things. But I think
50% or something, right?
Oh, it's more than that. Kaplan has a joke about it. Something about how we're 60% bacteria or something, and so we are. Oh shoot! How does it go? It's something. But we're I don't remember. It's something like we're humans by electoral vote or something like that.
Oh, like by gerrymandering.
Yeah.
Is that the one where it's split? Yeah, gerrymandering is when they split up the seats to favor your advantage.
I don't remember. But anyhow, around the equator, the parasites and bacteria are just generally more threatening to humans. There's just way more of them. And so if you follow that logic, then that is perhaps why people also near the equator tend to have more in-group favoritism and out-group bias, just by the nature of being in an environment with a higher parasitic load.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which countries fall on the equator?
So
it's I think of South America,
South, and like
Africa?
Mexico. Yeah, there's
Middle East just above it.
Yeah, Middle East. Is on the equator.
We got to Febreze the equator. Get some good smells in there.
Well, so one thing that generally happens is that as sanitation improves in a given area, that area becomes more progressive. So if you just clean up bacterial and parasitic threats in a given area, you're just going to have people become more accepting of outgroups, and
you start seeing the signs go up. In this house, we believe all genders exist. Black Lives Matter. Religion is best kept inside.
People start banging more, that sort of thing. Nice. And so yeah, it could like going back to your original idea of does someone have the capability? Are they intelligent enough to not be discriminating or whatever? And then can we discriminate against them? Well, you could make a case that, well, if someone's born into this threatening environment, these things they're just going to be more inclined to hold these beliefs, and so maybe it's worth attempting to be more understanding. But at the same time, I mean, I grew up around a lot of people. A lot of kids in my class had, wealthier parents and got better grades than I did and had a lot more opportunities in life and were super racist, super duper racist. So I think you can't just give everyone a free pass, and it's also condescending sometimes to be like, oh well, they must be incapable of thinking. And I mean, I've seen myself change over time. I've seen a lot of people from that area change over time and things. You get older and you just kind of stop falling for that stuff in the same way. And then it can go the other way. I mean, we just had a pandemic where everyone was, worried about their livelihoods, worried about, their family members and things getting this unknown virus, worrying about, instability in the streets and protests and what'd I say?
instability, which that might be a word too, but I think it's instability.
It is instability.
But but when you call something unstable, you don't call it instable.
Yeah,
that's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, someone pulled a fast one on us.
And so it's like in all of the, if you remember I don't know if you ever saw any of the Donald Trump ads, but all the ones that ran in my town at that time, it was just nothing but, this is what's going to happen if Joe Biden takes over, and it's fires in the street everywhere and a little old lady calling 911 and like, there's a criminal breaking into my house. So they're like, we're sorry, we're busy. We've defunded
it. Which is funny because the Democrats don't defund.
No, anything. And it was like footage from his administration, like things that were direct responses to him egging people on via tweets, and then got that footage and then went, and this is what will happen if Joe Biden got elected.
Oh, you're talking about second term. Didn't work though.
Yeah, the second term
would have worked if it wasn't for COVID.
Close.
He would have won by a landslide if it wasn't for COVID. But
you think so? I think the
100%.
only reason why he got close was because of COVID.
No, he would have won because economy was good. There was no wars going on. Like none of the Democrat contenders could have really gotten him. His approval rating was great, but his handling of the virus, like it kind of showed that he's a master of being a bully against people. But you can't bully a virus. Like his Trump tactics don't work against a virus. Right. So he just seemed very incapable of doing anything about it. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Biden still would have won. But I had the feeling that, he's for sure going to win 2 terms. But then when COVID hit, it's like, he doesn't really know what to do about this.
Well, Biden, it would have changed everything because Biden might not have been a contender either. If like Biden was this safe choice of like, here's just this old guy that will just do nothing and won't.
Remember
doing
Obama?
Nothing.
He lived with him.
Yeah,
he was his roommate for 4 years. He knows all the tricks and he's his best friend.
Yeah,
and I think
doing
Obama
nothing
didn't even
sound
endorse
terrific?
him. Yeah, he didn't endorse him till the last second.
Oh man, what a wild last 5 or 6 years.
I think it's supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be awful. It's by design.
We might have had it too good for too long or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder when the next young president will be and who it could be.
Boy, that would be great. Because that's another. So speaking of another way in which we discriminate, ageism. Ageism. That's a big thing. I mean,
ageism, ableism, racism. That's all I got.
I've lately been hanging out with people that are like, I've been with going to festivals and finding musicians for the Campout and stuff like that. I've been spending more time with people that are like 15 years younger than me or whatever than I had in the past. And I've realized that I'm like, I always think of myself as like young at heart and I still like partying and everything. And then like, yeah, I guess I don't have as much to talk about with someone 15 years younger than me.
What are they talking about? I mean, the obvious joke answer is the latest TikTok dance trend or something, but what are they?
I mean, it's just like curse of knowledge stuff where the stuff that I kind of remember being excited about when I was in my 20s, which is like, just starting to get more, politically curious or involved or whatever. And finding out like cool things about the universe to share, like, oh, the universe is so big, whoa. Yeah. And
I wish that still worked. That's what sucks about the brain acclimating to stuff. It doesn't work the next day. Your favorite song doesn't work the next day.
Yeah. And I tend to find myself like identifying more around people within a 5-year range of me or whatever. I mean, I guess a lot of my better friends, some of them are like 10 years older than me or more, but yeah, so I think it's kind of a natural thing to want to hang around people your age, but and again, I think you can't just be like, young people are ruining everything, or all these old people just need to die because their old ways are stupid and outdated. And
that's how both are supposed to think, though. That's the oldest story. Yeah, the old people are supposed to think that the youngs are screwing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, we had fun when we were young, but these new kids, these new kids are stupid and they're reckless, and they don't even do it in the fun way that we used to do it. But also the people older than us, they got to get out of here.
Yeah. So in and out group bias happens everywhere. And
did we miss any big ones? We did race for a long time. Did gender a little bit.
Religion's a huge one.
Yeah, religion and political ideology I would group in the same category, because they're both they're both kind of faith-based. You don't really know that this side's policies are going to work the way they say they're going to work, or whether they're going to actually implement them. Also, one side tends to have want to make it a religious theocracy. One side is very faith-based, the other side is less faith-based, so it is kind of a religion.
Yeah, they're related, but they're different. I mean, you're going to have
there's a doomsday prediction, everything. It lines up perfectly to a religion.
That's true. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of similarity, and I guess there'd be more diversity of religion in big cities than in small towns and things. I remember.
Yeah, your mosque isn't going to do that well in a town of 1,000 people.
I remember once my grandma and I got into like this disagreement because I was just trying to be like, hey, could we just like maybe not bring up race or whatever? Like, when I visit, we could just talk about other things, and like very taken back, like, oh, I'm not racist, and her being like from a city of 1,000 people, like, it's not as small of a town as you think. There is a black guy that goes to our church. That was something she was like, I'm very progressive. There's a black guy.
That's her black friend.
I allow to go to my church. So it's not like I'm naive to the world.
Yeah.
But yeah. But again, some in-group stuff, awesome. It's not like we still choose friends and things like that's what's really tricky with affirmative action and things like that, where it's like, I mean, you want to pick people that sometimes, and that's like kind of close to that. But I'm not hosting the show with just some random person, or friends. I want to host a show. I shouldn't be forced to not host, to host with just random people or something like that. But then at the same time, there's so many. They've looked at the data of people that have a criminal history, and white people with a criminal history. So they had white people without a criminal history, white people with a criminal history, black people without a criminal history, and black people with a criminal history. And in order of who is most likely to get hired is white people without a criminal history, white people with a criminal history were tied with black people without a criminal history, and then black people with a criminal history, like, good luck.
Yeah,
like,
good luck
it's
anywhere.
Just not going to happen. Yeah, and then there's just
the white criminal just, they mailed their taxes on time, and then the postman lost it. That's why they went to jail.
Yeah, and there's all these fundamental attribution errors, which is kind of what you're articulating, which is if you do something good, if something good happens to you, it's because you earned it, you accomplished it with your grit. If something bad happens to you, it's because you had bum luck. If something good happens to someone else, they probably got lucky. If something bad happens to them, they probably did something that caused that thing to happen to them, and then that goes into if a mass shooting happens, if you're a white person and a white person does some mass shooting, you go, oh, well, we have a mental health problem. That person was crazy. That was a single actor, crazy person, random event. If a black person is a shooting, then and you're white, you're going to be more inclined to think this says something.
Has there even been
black
that yet?
People in general.
Has there been a black mass shooter?
There was a sniper in like
1962,
2000, or it would have been about 2002. I remember I was working in a furniture factory. It was around the DC area. I think it was like DC sniper. I wonder how many he got. DC sniper. Yeah, he had his car rigged so he could look out a hole in his trunk. So he would park his car and then shoot with a silent like sniper rifle through his trunk, just kill random people with a sniper rifle. And then he had some
random,
like 17-year-old boy that like he recruited in on this fun with him. He was 41 at the time. John Allen Muhammad.
It's always 3 names.
And Lee Boyd Malov.
Yep, triple names. Watch out.
Triple
Lee
names.
Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, the Lennon shooter guy.
And he was sentenced to death. The 17-year-old was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without parole. And I don't know how many, 10 people were killed, which seems quaint by today's standards. Really. 3 others.
10 is entry level.
Yeah,
that's the buy-in to even sit at the table.
But that was, well, what was different about it was 10 at like, I don't know how many different times, but it might have been like 7 different times.
That's not mass though. I'm talking AK-47 or whatever.
Yeah, but that's one time. Like anyone can be a mass shooter on like on a suicide mission. Like I'm just going to go shoot up a bunch of people and then the cops are going to kill me or I'll blow my head off or they'll get me or whatever. And you get one shot at it. But this guy was a serial killer. That's serial killing's a different game.
Yeah.
It's totally, because you're trying to get away with it and you're trying to do it regularly. What a weird, have you seen that? Oh my gosh, what is the show on Netflix? Well,
yeah, of course.
What?
The show on Netflix.
Mindhunter?
No.
Oh man, do you know what it's about?
Serial killers?
Yeah, but it's much cooler than that. It's based on a true story. As we wrap up here, I know you need to go. There were these FBI agents who were some of the first psychologists in the FBI trying to study serial killers. Before that time, it was taboo to even you just throw away the key. You don't study them. They're crazy. Don't think about them. And they started thinking, well, we might get information and figure out how to solve more crimes by identifying certain personality traits and everything. And they went and they recorded all of these interviews with just every serial killer. And it started changing law enforcement. They got all of these good results and these are real people. And they wrote some book about it that then the show is based on. But in the show, they get people that look just like the serial killer, and then they use the actual dialogue. Like when they go in to interview them, they use the actual dialogue from those recorded tapes. So
they're lip syncing.
They get the script from the actual tapes and then have the actors.
Oh, okay.
They're actors.
Oh, gotcha. I just thought they were like nailing it word for word.
They're lip syncing. So fundamental attribution bias, a person in the outgroup does a bad thing, you attribute it to a characteristic within that group. Like all of them are criminals or all of them are this way or that way. Someone does a bad thing within your group and you go like, well, that's just one wacky person. That has nothing to do with me. So anyhow, that's in and out group stuff for you. There's so many little facets of this that could be, expanded on quite a bit more.
Write your favorite outgroup hatred.
Yeah, what's your favorite outgroup bias?
Yeah.
And
what group do you hate?
And come to Campout, signal your in-group soft rockingness, and there
Your
is
soft rock should be this, maybe just half fingers.
Does this do it? Does this do anything for you? Just a pinky? Does that do anything?
I want to make sure it's not a thing already. You know how everything is already a thing?
I wonder if that's a thing.
That's the Dane Cook super finger. You can't do
this might be something like that's horrifically racist or something like that.
It seems like it is. And judging with what I don't know if we said anything horrible this episode, probably, but it doesn't help to conclude it with this. We were talking about some Nazi guy that discovered electricity. He basically discovered light. No, he discovered that ducks don't care if you're not their mom as long as you're a moving thing.
Yeah. He did a lot of early conditioning work, which then got used.
It's nice to think of Hitler going through studies and stuff, and it's not all about killing the Jews. Sometimes he's just looking at duck papers going like,
Yeah, how do we do that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, join the in-group on Patreon. That's how we pay for this show. Again, if you aren't on Patreon, it's probably because you're too poor and smelly and not cool and
racist.
Everything else to be able, and racist to support us on Patreon. And, so it's just not for you. But those of you that are soft rocking it on Patreon, you pay for the show. We love making those art episodes specifically for you. We have a ton of fun ones coming out, and we look forward. By the way, please, if you just know anyone around North Carolina at all, tell them about the Mind Under Matter Campout Festival, because we've now built it into such an amazing thing with so much stuff going out that we just want to introduce as many people as possible to what's going to be an amazing experience and to us, and we just want more people there to have a blast. So check that out, spread the word,
get in here,
and until next time,
keep on salivating, keep on salivating, honey.